The announcement echoed through the bustling air of Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, blending with the scent of roasted coffee and the rolling rhythm of suitcases gliding across polished floors. Amid the crowd, Jordan Mitchell, dressed in a finely tailored navy suit, stood still. Around his wrist was an old Swiss watch, the only thing he had kept from his late father. And in that seemingly ordinary moment, everything in his life was about to turn upside down because of a single, cold sentence. "I'm sorry the system can't find a first-class ticket under your name." Jordan lifted his gaze. The voice belonged to Linda Harris, a check-in clerk in her 50s, sharp and metallic. The polite smile vanished the instant her eyes rested on his face, on the warm brown skin of an African-American man. Seconds earlier, she had been beaming at the white passengers ahead of him, calling them sir and ma'am, handing over their boarding passes with both hands. But with him, there was no sir. No smile, only a calculating look, as if he didn't belong in this part of the terminal, reserved for the elite. Jordan took a deep breath. He knew that look. He had seen it hundreds of times in college classrooms, in boardrooms, even in bars where people assumed he was someone's driver. But today was different. Today, he was carrying a $50 million opportunity for his company, Aegis Cyber Defense, the rising giant in cybersecurity. A presentation in New York could take Aegis to the national stage. A private meeting with Senator Daniel Ross could open the door to a federal contract. And to make the right first impression, Jordan had chosen to fly first class, paid for, with his own money. "There must be some mistake," he said evenly. "I booked a first-class ticket 3 months ago. I have confirmation of flight code, and my seat number 3A. Linda gave a faint, dismissive smile, tapping at her keyboard, the clacking drawn out on purpose. "Yes, but the system is flagging an error. Please step aside, I'll check further." The word sounded polite, but everyone nearby knew what they meant. Step aside was code for get out of sight. Jordan glanced around. Behind him, a line of white passengers, men in grey suits, women with blonde hair carrying Louis Vuitton bags, were processed swiftly. Linda's smile shone brightly for them as she printed their tickets and handed them over. 2 passengers were even upgraded to business class while he was still waiting. Time dripped away second by second, wearing down what little patience he had left. When he turned back, Linda still refused to meet his eyes. "First class is full," she said calmly. "You'll be seated in 35B economy." Her tone was as casual as reading a weather report. Jordan tightened his grip on his leather briefcase. "That's impossible. I already confirmed my seat. I'm a platinum tier member, and this ticket was paid in full." Linda shrugged. "That's what the system shows, sir." The word "sir" landed with a thin edge of mockery. A white man nearby wearing a polo shirt spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Not everyone belongs in first class. Some people just don't understand how the system works. Linda chuckled softly. No one needed to say more. The message was clear. Jordan noticed the airport security guard approaching, slowly, deliberately stopping, just a few steps away, a silent warning not to make a scene. In his mind, his father's voice surfaced, steady and calm. Robert Mitchell, the mailman who had worked 30 years without a single complaint. When you get angry, they win. When you stay calm, you collect data. Jordan swallowed his pride. "All right," he said, quietly. "Economy will do." Linda nodded, relieved to be rid of the inconvenience. She printed the ticket and slid it across the counter. "Boarding starts in 30 minutes. Have a pleasant flight." The smile returned empty and mechanical. Jordan walked away, passing the large mirror by the wall. The reflection showed a tall man with broad shoulders and a flawless suit, but the eyes staring back were those of someone who had just been stripped of dignity. His hand trembled slightly as he held the ticket. Seat 35B wedged between two others in the back of the cabin. A seat that for him was more than a number. It was a declaration of prejudice. He sat down in the waiting area and opened his phone. His fingers moved across the screen, typing quickly. Linda Harris, Horizon Air Premiere. Desk 10:27 a.m. Flight HX2410. Reason for denial, first class, overbooked. Noted 3 passengers upgraded at the same time. Each word appeared cold and precise, like lines of code. It wasn't just a note, it was evidence. On the display above the flight to New York flashed boarding soon. Jordan looked up, the reflected light in his eyes, gleaming like steel. What filled him now wasn't anger, it was a dangerous calm. He didn't yet know that in just 25 minutes, Horizon Air's entire national booking system would collapse, and the man behind the digital storm would be the one sitting silently in the waiting lounge, gripping an economy ticket in his hand. Across the terminal, Linda Harris chatted with a colleague, her voice low, but loud enough for others to catch. Who does he think he is? A black man flying first class must have been a system glitch. They both laughed. They didn't know that laugh would haunt them for the rest of their lives, because they had just awakened a man who had learned to turn humiliation into strategy. Jordan stared out through the glass wall at the runways stretching beneath the Texas sun. Planes took off one by one, leaving trails of white smoke in the sky, straight, proud, defiant. He whispered to himself, a promise more than a thought. Dad was right. They'll always see my skin before my suit. But one day, they'll see something else, my mind. A faint smile crossed his lips, not of satisfaction, but of resolve. He had chosen how to respond. Not with rage, but with intellect and justice. In that moment, Jordan Mitchell was no longer just a passenger, downgraded to economy. He became a storm waiting to rise, a storm named Truth. And when it struck, Horizon Air would never forget. The announcement echoed again, calling first-class passengers to board. Jordan Mitchell watched the line move through the priority gate, polished suits, gleaming shoes, soft laughter mingling with the sound of light rolling luggage. With every step they took, he felt himself being pushed further away from the world he had spent 20 years fighting to enter. In his hand was an economy ticket seat, 35B, near the back middle seat. No window, no space, only limitation. As he entered the cabin, the flight attendant, Megan Clark, glanced at him and paused, not out of curiosity, but judgment. He gave a polite nod. "Good morning?" She pressed her lips together, returning the gesture with a cold nod, before turning to warmly greet the couple behind him. Jordan didn't need anyone to explain. He knew that for many, the color of his skin was a uniform that made them lower, their voices change their tone, or pretend not to see him at all. He found his row. On the left, a large man occupied both armrests. On the right, a young student with Beats headphones, rap music pulsing so loud it leaked into the air. Jordan folded himself into the narrow space, his Armani suit wrinkling in seconds. The plane began to taxi. The engine hummed softly, and Jordan steadied his breathing. He needed to arrive in New York as a leader, not as a man humiliated. "Excuse me," he said quietly as the flight attendant passed. "Could I have a glass of water, please?" Megan looked down at him, her tone flat. "I'll bring the drink cart later. You'll have to wait." Then she walked on, stopping to laugh and chat with 2 white passengers in the next rows. They burst into laughter. One said, "Oh Lord, I thought economy only got water." "True," another added, "but with a pretty flight attendant like her, maybe I'll get wine too." More laughter followed. Jordan lowered his gaze, pressing his lips together. 20 minutes passed before the drink cart appeared at the front of the cabin. He watched it move slowly, row by row, careful and courteous, pouring water, offering snacks, checking trays. But when it reached row 35, Megan placed a half-filled plastic cup on his tray without a glance. "Here you go," she said, already pushing the cart away. He hadn't even thanked her before she was serving the next row. Jordan closed his eyes. The hum of the engine, the muffled bass from the students' headphones, the chatter of passengers, all of it merged into one harsh, grating noise. He opened his laptop, trying to focus on his presentation for the upcoming meeting, but the words on the screen blurred, replaced by memories. He remembered his first day at a major tech company, 15 years earlier. When he introduced himself as a network engineer, a co-worker had asked, "You sure you're not from the delivery department?" He had smiled, said nothing, and proved himself by fixing a system error in 10 minutes that the whole team had struggled with for 2 days. From that moment, he learned something vital. Silence wasn't weakness. Silence was preparation. A small jolt brought him back to the present. The man beside him had reclined his seat, fully pressing into Jordan's knees. Jordan shifted aside, grimacing, and pressed the call button. No one came. He pressed it again. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Suddenly the overhead speaker blared, sharp as a blade. "Passenger in seat. 35B, please stop pressing the call button repeatedly. This disrupts crew operations." Heads turned. Some passengers chuckled. Megan appeared, eyes full of reproach. "You don't need to press it so many times. I'll come when I can." Jordan nodded, his tone calm. "I just needed more water." "You already got some," she said curtly, and walked away. The stares around him pierced like needles. In that instant, he was no longer the CEO of Aegis Cyber Defense, no longer the man who had spoken at an international security summit. He was just another black man being publicly scolded in the middle of a plane cabin. The student beside him removed one headphone and whispered, "They shouldn't have done that." "I saw everything." Jordan turned, nodding slightly, managing a faint smile. "It's all right. Things like this happen all the time." But inside, a small fire had begun to burn. He reopened his laptop. Instead of editing his slides, he launched an internal browser, a secure tool he had built himself. Using Horizon Air's onboard Wi-Fi, he began scanning the airline's network architecture. Lines of code scrolled down the screen fast and clean. And then he saw them, the vulnerabilities. No layered firewall, no customer data encryption at payment gateways. Their security infrastructure was as open as an unlocked door. He didn't breach anything. He only observed, took notes, but an idea had begun to take shape. If they judged people by skin color, he would judge them by the one thing they truly lacked: security intelligence. A soft ding sounded. A message appeared on his phone. "Welcome, Mr. Mitchell. We look forward to your arrival at the Westbrook Hotel in New York." He smiled. At least one thing was still on schedule. But moments later, another ping followed. "We regret to inform you that your room reservation failed to process due to a payment error. The hotel is currently fully booked." Jordan narrowed his eyes. It couldn't be coincidence. Not after everything that had just happened. He opened Horizon Air's public employee directory and scrolled until one name stood out: Linda Harris, supervisor, Premier desk. A single thought burned through his mind. We'll meet again, Linda. The 3-hour flight felt like a lifetime. From his seat in economy, he could see the first-class curtain slightly open. There sat Senator Daniel Ross, the man he hoped would sign the national security contract. The senator was laughing, clinking glasses with another CEO in the same industry. They had no idea the man in the cramped seat behind them was the very person they planned to exclude from the negotiation table. Jordan glanced at the thin curtain dividing the cabins, light spilling faintly through. He realized that sometimes the distance between first class and economy wasn't measured in seats, but in prejudice. He didn't speak, he didn't record, he didn't argue. He remembered every face, every voice, every look, because he knew that every system has a vulnerability, both digital systems and human ones. When the plane landed, Jordan stood up last. He helped an elderly woman retrieve her bag, smiled at a young student struggling with her luggage. Megan, the flight attendant, stood at the door, bowing slightly as passengers exited. When he approached, she turned away, pretending to adjust her uniform. Not a single word of farewell. Jordan looked through the terminal window at the long stretch of New York's runway. The sky was grey, streaked with pale light like silver threads between two worlds, one of privilege and one of prejudice. He walked out without looking back. Behind him, the announcement echoed again, this time reporting that the next Horizon Air flight was temporarily delayed due to system issues. He smiled faintly. "Don't worry," he whispered. "It's going to be temporary for quite a while." As Jordan Mitchell left JFK Airport, what filled him wasn't anger. It was the calm of a man about to act. He didn't yet know that in just a few hours the very people who had belittled him would be begging him to save their company, and by then he wouldn't need to say a word. He would only need to press one button and the entire Horizon Air system would fall to its knees before the man they had once looked down on. The New York night was colder than he had expected. Each gust of wind slapped his face, sharp as needles. But it did not hurt as much as the thing burning inside him, the humiliation of being treated as less. Jordan Mitchell pulled his one remaining suitcase from the taxi and stopped in front of the Westbrook Midtown Hotel, a place he had stayed many times when he came to this city. The tower rose about 40 stories high, its glass facade reflecting the blazing lights of Times Square. Everything about it radiated the kind of luxury Jordan loved, precise, quiet, professional. But tonight, nothing went the way he expected. "Good evening, my name is Jordan Mitchell. I have an executive suite booked," he said calmly, holding out his phone with the reservation code on the screen. The young receptionist gave him a mechanical smile, tapped a few keys, and slowly that smile faded. "I am sorry, Mr. Mitchell, the system shows that your card failed payment." Jordan frowned slightly. "That is not possible. I used this card this morning in Dallas." "Yes, but according to our policy, we are required to cancel a reservation if the card cannot be verified. The hotel is currently fully booked. I can move you to a standard room." "A standard room," Jordan repeated, his voice tightening. "I booked a suite to prepare for an important meeting tomorrow morning." She tilted her head, her tone softening but still cold. "I am sorry, but that is the only option we have." He nodded and forced a thin smile. "You know this is the second time today that someone's system has a problem when I show up?" She laughed awkwardly, not really understanding what he meant. Jordan signed the form, and in that exact moment he heard in his mind the dry, metallic laugh of Linda Harris at the check-in desk a few hours earlier. Room 1408. No large window, no leather chair, no desk. Only a single bed, walls painted an old dull white, and a small window looking out on dripping air conditioning units. Jordan set his suitcase down, took off his coat, and dropped onto the edge of the bed. His phone buzzed a message from Priya Patel, the chief operating officer of Aegis. "Jordan, we got the slides you sent. Fortress Capital has reconfirmed the meeting at 9 in the morning tomorrow. You will do great. The whole team believes in you." Jordan looked at the message and nodded slightly. Behind those words was the absolute trust of an entire company, about 300 people, waiting for him to bring home a $50 million contract, enough to expand into the European market. He could not fall apart because of one airport employee or one stupid system error. He opened his laptop. The light from the screen reflected on his tired, thoughtful face. The presentation slides were almost perfect until he remembered that the luggage containing the hard drive had been misrouted to Denver. He froze, his heart sinking. All the visual models, demo videos, security data, everything was in that suitcase. Jordan loosened his tie, drew a deep breath, and started again from zero. He downloaded backup files from the cloud server, rebuilt the structure of his talk, and inserted every graphic again. 4 hours passed, then 6, then 8. His hands went numb, his eyes burned and blurred, but he didn't stop. On the table, 3 cans of cold coffee sat stacked on top of each other. At about 4:30 in the morning, he leaned back in the chair, his eyes bloodshot. Everything was done. Not as perfect as before, but enough to fight with. He let out a quiet laugh, the laugh of someone who had grown used to walking through the night. "Dad," he whispered, looking up at the ceiling, "I kept my promise. I am not letting them drown me." At about 6:30 in the morning, Jordan put on his suit, again, pressed as smooth as he could with steam from the electric kettle. It was crude and makeshift, but in the mirror, he still looked like a leader. He straightened his tie, lifted his chin, his determined eyes, reflecting his resolve. Then his phone vibrated, a message from Senator Daniel Ross. "Sorry, I have to cancel breakfast this morning. We can reschedule next week." Jordan stood still. It was not just breakfast. It was the political doorway he had spent months preparing for. And now it had closed with a single cold line of text. He knew why. Ross had seen him yesterday, had seen him being humiliated in the middle of the economy cabin. A man campaigning for a so-called corporate fairness initiative could not let that image cling to his public story. At about 8:45, Jordan arrived at the Fortress Capital building, tall, bright, dazzling. The main lobby was a sea of glass and steel, designed so that everything made you feel smaller. The receptionist looked at him, a flicker of doubt crossing her eyes, when she noticed his slightly worn suitcase and the tie that was not as crisp as usual. "Mr. Mitchell Wright." "Please come in. Everyone is waiting." In the conference room, 8 men and 2 women dressed in black sat around the table. No one offered a handshake. Jeffrey Walters, the chief executive of Fortress, glanced at his watch, his voice cold. "We are already starting late, Mr. Mitchell." "I arrived 15 minutes early," Jordan replied. Walters raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps our watches are not in the same time zone." Soft laughter rippled through the room. Jordan took a breath and brought the screen to life. His voice rang out steady and clear. Each slide appeared with clean structure, every figure precise. He spoke with conviction, with lived experience, with the belief that technology could defend justice. But as he looked around and saw a few people secretly checking their phones, others nodding just for show, he understood. The decision had been made before he ever stepped into the room. After he finished, Walters gave a shallow nod. "Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Very impressive solution. But we need time to review other options." Other options? Yes, it seems Netcore Systems has presented a more attractive proposal. Jordan understood immediately. Netcore, his long-time rival, had just coincidentally been chosen by Horizon Air as their security contractor instead of Aegis. Every piece slid into place. From the seat downgrade to the hotel room to the stalled contract, this was not coincidence. This was a chain reaction born of power and prejudice. He bowed his head, slightly closed his laptop, and gathered his things. As he stepped out of the room, he heard Walters mutter to his assistant, "He does not seem very stable. We should probably go with a more reliable partner." The door closed behind him with a click that sounded like a blade cutting through hope. Outside, the wind was strong. Jordan sat down on a stone bench by the street and watched tall buildings reflect a cold, distant sunlight. His phone rang. Priya was calling. "Jordan, I just heard. Fortress has already signed with Netcore." But what happened? Everything was on track, right? His voice was low. "It is not on track, Priya. And it is not random. Horizon Air is the starting point. You mean they interfered? Not they. Someone on the inside. But they are going to regret it." He ended the call and lifted his gaze to the sky. A plane with the Horizon Air logo was passing overhead, its shadow gliding across the rows of buildings. Jordan's mouth curved in a thin smile. "We will meet again," he murmured. "Next time at the altitude I choose." That afternoon, as he walked out of the park, his phone alerted him that Aegis stock had dropped about 3%. The board of directors was anxious investors were calling non-stop. To the public, he looked like a chief executive losing control. But to him, everything was finally starting to move in the right direction. Because he knew that before you can rebuild order, you have to let the system collapse. And he, the man who had once been invisible in the middle of the economy cabin, would be the one to press the first button. That night in the small hotel room, Jordan stared at his laptop screen, open to the first line of a new note. Horizon Air, Phase 1. Assess security architecture. Identify weaknesses in the booking network, payment systems and coordination platforms. Objective, demonstrate the consequences of arrogance. He typed one last sentence. This is not revenge. This is justice. Then he turned off the light and gently closed his eyes. Outside, the city refused to sleep. And among millions of shining windows, one man had chosen to become the single darkness that power would learn to fear. The next morning, as the Texas sunlight slid across the glass walls of Aegis Cyber Defense, the atmosphere in the conference room on the 38th floor was so heavy it felt suffocating. There was no sound of keyboards, no usual opening jokes. Only silence, the kind of silence that hangs over people who have just watched their faith being threatened. Jordan Mitchell stood at the head of the table, his hands clasped in front of him, his gaze calmer than the night before. But inside him, a current was raging. On the large screen behind him was the system map of Horizon Air, every connection and access gate rendered sharply. Beneath it, a simple line of text read, Operation Project Horizon. Priya Patel, the chief operating officer and Jordan's closest partner for the past 7 years, was the first to break the silence. "Jordan, I heard Fortress Capital chose Netcore. The contract is gone. Our stock dropped 3% this morning. The financial press is already speculating that we have internal issues." She spoke quickly and decisively, but worry clouded her eyes. Jordan nodded. "I know. and the cause started at an airport. He recounted everything from the moment he was downgraded in Dallas, the way Linda Harris treated him, to the string of hotel issues, the cancelled breakfast, the lost contract. Every sentence landed like a blade on the trust of everyone in the room. Andre Lewis, the chief of security, clenched his fists. My God! So she really called the hotel and the restaurant Jordan brought up, a call log on the screen traced back by the technical team. Here, same time frame, same Horizon switchboard number. And if you look closer, those calls originated from internal company IP addresses. The room went quiet again. Only the soft hum of the air conditioning remained. Sofia Martinez, head of communications, finally spoke. This is not just personal anymore. If this is true, we are facing organized racial discrimination. Jordan, what are you going to do? He turned, looking at each of them in turn. We are not going to sue. We are not going to run to the media. We are not going to play the victim. We are going to do the one thing Horizon would never expect. We will hit back with the very thing they despise most: intelligence. Priya frowned. You mean? Jordan nodded. A strategic counterattack, lawful, ethical, and undeniable. He clicked the remote, and the screen shifted to a data table. 3 months ago, Horizon sent us a request for proposal for their security system. Aegis assessed it and found 17 critical vulnerabilities, but they rejected us, said we were too expensive and unnecessary. They chose tech core systems instead, half the price, and half as strong. Andre leaned back and shook his head. And now they are operating with a security system like a torn net. Jordan continued. Exactly. They think I am just another anonymous black passenger. They forgot I am the one who helped design encryption protocols for the Department of Defense. And I know exactly where they are weak. Thomas Blake, their legal counsel, adjusted his glasses. It sounds appealing, but, Jordan, we are talking about a razor-thin line between a lawful move and a cyber attack. One wrong step and we could be prosecuted. Jordan nodded. I know. That is why everything we do will stay within the ethics of our profession. No hacking, no breaking in. We only observe, analyze, and report. He paused, his eyes lighting up. We will give Horizon 2 choices. 1, they admit their mistake, issue a public apology, dismantle their discriminatory culture, and hire Aegis as a strategic partner. 2, if they refuse, we send a detailed report of their security flaws to the Federal Aviation Administration, the Federal Trade Commission, and every relevant aviation regulator. The whole world will know that Horizon Air is putting customer data at risk. The room stirred. Priya looked at Jordan, part admiration, part concern. That is a precise strike. But what if they hit back? They have money, media, and political power. Jordan answered, his voice low but firm. Then we have the truth. Andre leaned forward. Give me 48 hours. I will assemble a dedicated technical team. We will review their entire public infrastructure. No lines cross, just open source data. Jordan nodded. Good. We will call it Operation Integrity. Sophia scribbled notes quickly. I will draft press releases and crisis response documents. If this blows up, we will have our answers ready. Thomas nodded slowly, his tone grave. I will make sure every step is legal. But Jordan, you need to be ready for the worst case. They will fight dirty. Jordan gave a faint, wry smile. I have lived my whole life inside dirty shots, Thomas. I am just changing the rules of the game. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When everyone left, only Jordan and Priya remained. She looked at him, her gaze a mix of respect and compassion. "Are you sure this is not about anger, Jordan?" He was quiet for a moment. "No, this is about justice, but it is also about something else. What I want them to understand, that when they laugh in the face of a black man, they are laughing at an entire generation that had to fight to sit at this table." Priya said nothing. She simply placed a hand on his shoulder and squeezed gently. "Then make it count, Jordan. Do not just win. Make them change." That night, the lights in the 10th floor lab at Aegis stayed on. Andre and the engineering team built a diagram of Horizon Systems' public API gateways, backup servers, payment transaction flows. Screens glowed bright lines of code, streaming like blood vessels inside a digital body. My God, one engineer blurted out, "They are still using an old firewall version from the year 2016. Andre gave a low whistle. "I have seen shredded bank security, but this is suicide. Every vulnerability they found, every weak point they documented, not to break it, but to prove one thing: no system survives when it is built on prejudice." Around 10 o'clock that night, as Jordan reviewed the documents, an anonymous email appeared. The subject line read, "From someone inside Horizon Air." The body contained only a few short lines. "What happened to you is not the first time. I have attached our staff training materials, section 4.3, profile assessment. They teach us to classify passengers using internal keywords. It means that you will always be ranked after them." Attached was a PDF file, Horizon's official guide to passenger management, where terms like high priority and standard risk were coded with symbols that everyone understood: skin color names, clothing. Jordan read every line, his hands tightening until his knuckles turned white. He printed the file, laid it on his desk, and stared at the Horizon Air logo in the corner. His voice dropped into a vow. "Tomorrow I put an end to this system." Outside, the rain began to fall. High above, the lights of Aegis shone into the Austin sky like a lonely lighthouse. And inside, Jordan, a plan had just been completed. Not a plan for revenge, but a verdict against arrogance. He opened his computer and typed the first line of a new directive. Operation Integrity Phase 2 approach. Horizon leadership present the evidence, give them one last chance. The screen cast a pale blue light across his face, the light of a man who was no longer afraid of the dark. The headquarters of Horizon Air stood in the heart of downtown Dallas, a massive fortress of steel and glass, cold, imposing, and unshakably proud. That morning, the wind was strong, and the sky hung heavy with clouds. Jordan Mitchell stepped out of his car, adjusted his tie, and tightened his grip on the briefcase that held the evidence he believed would bring the entire system to its knees. He hadn't come to beg. He had come to give them one last chance, a chance to correct their wrongs before justice forced them to pay the price. The moment he walked into the lobby, he felt it again, that familiar atmosphere of suspicion hiding beneath a veneer of polite professionalism. The receptionist looked up, her eyes flickering across his face before dropping quickly. "I'm sorry, may I see your ID?" Jordan handed it over, his voice calm. "Jordan Mitchell, Aegis Cyber Defense. I have a meeting scheduled with CEO Gregory Stanton at 10 this morning." She typed for a moment, then frowned. "I'm not seeing your name on today's list." Jordan gave a faint smile. "Try checking Mr. Stanton's email from this morning." She hesitated, made a few calls, and finally handed him a temporary visitor badge. "I'm sorry, sir, but you'll have to go through the security scanner." Jordan glanced over. None of the white visitors before him had been asked to. Still he stayed silent. He walked through the scanner, steady and composed. He wasn't here to argue. He was here to remember. After waiting nearly 45 minutes in the lobby, someone finally appeared. "Mr. Mitchell, please follow me. The board is expecting you." Jordan walked down a long hallway, lined with framed photographs, celebrating the proud legacy of Horizon Air. In every frame, every smiling face shared the same color, a wall of perfect whiteness. When the conference room door opened, he didn't see the grand boardroom he had imagined. Instead, it was a small, windowless room with 6 people seated around a table. Gregory Stanton, the CEO, a tanned man with silver hair and a polished athletic build. Mark Ellis, the chief operating officer, sharp-eyed and cold. 2 vice presidents, an in-house lawyer, and a quiet Asian woman sitting at the far end of the table, younger than the rest, watching everything closely. Stanton didn't rise to greet him. He merely nodded. "Mr. Mitchell, I understand you have concerns about a recent flight." The tone set the stage instantly. This wasn't a meeting between equals. It was a hearing, and Jordan was the accused. He didn't rush to respond. He placed his briefcase on the table, opened it, and pulled out a thick folder. "This is a detailed report. It begins with a first-class ticket that mysteriously disappeared and ends with one of your employees, Linda Harris, deliberately contacting my hotel restaurant and business partners, causing direct financial damage to my company." He slid the folder across the table. Inside are call logs, witness statements, and an internal document section, 4.3 Profile Assessment. Mark Ellis glanced at it, raising an eyebrow. "We're not used to customers investigating our staff, Mr. Mitchell." Jordan smiled faintly. "And I'm not used to being discriminated against after paying in full." Stanton folded his arms and leaned back in his chair. "You're implying Horizon Air engages in racial discrimination. That's quite an accusation." Jordan looked directly at him. "Not implying, stating. And not just toward me. One of your own employees sent me proof training materials that use coded language to classify passengers by skin color and name." The room froze. The Asian woman lowered her gaze toward the documents, a flicker of unease crossing her eyes. Mark Ellis spoke up. "Those materials could easily be fabricated. Nothing proves they're authentic." Jordan opened his laptop, projecting it onto the screen. "This is a copy, pulled directly from Horizon's internal server, time-stamped in Coordinated Universal Time. It's authentic and verifiable." He clicked to the next slide, data from the flight that day, showing 3 passengers upgraded to first class, all with membership levels lower than his. "And here's data you can't dispute. Flight HX2410 was never overbooked. 3 first-class seats remained empty the entire flight." Stanton inhaled deeply, a faint dismissive smile appearing on his lips. "Mr. Mitchell, you're a smart man. You understand that in operations, small mistakes happen. My job is to run an airline, not a social reform program." Jordan nodded slightly. "Then what about your employee, deliberately sabotaging my company's reputation, costing us a $50 million contract? Is that just another small mistake?" His voice rose, firm, but controlled. He clicked to the next slide, a graph showing Aegis stock falling 3% after the incident, along with emails from clients withdrawing deals. This is no longer about service. This is real financial damage caused by the contempt of someone who represents the Horizon Air brand. Mark Ellis gave a dry laugh. "So what is it you want?" A check Jordan met his gaze. "No, I want an apology, a commitment to change, and the security contract you rejected, so we can fix the flaws I warned you about 3 months ago." He pressed another button. The screen displayed Aegis's original cybersecurity report on Horizon 17, critical vulnerabilities, 6 directly linked to customer data. These are the weaknesses you ignored. And right now, Horizon's entire system is hanging by a thread. The air grew thick. Stanton tilted his head, his tone sharp as glass. "Is that a threat?" Jordan answered softly. "No. It's a warning. A COO should know when his system is on life support." Stanton let out a short, bitter laugh. "Listen, Mitchell, you don't get to lecture me. I've been running this airline for 20 years, and I won't let someone like you tell me how to do my job. Horizon Air doesn't bow to small inconveniences." He grabbed a pen, scribbled something on a notepad, and continued. "We can offer you a $5,000 flight voucher to smooth things over. If you're smart, you'll take it and leave." The room fell into silence. Jordan looked at him, his eyes no longer angry, but filled with pity. He gathered his papers slowly, closed the briefcase, and stood. "Mr. Stanton, I didn't come here to ask. I came here to give you a chance. And you just refused it." He turned to leave. Stanton's voice followed, dripping with mockery. "Careful, Mitchell. Everyone has skeletons in their closet." Jordan stopped at the door, looked back with a cool smile. "Unlike you, I make sure my systems, whether human or digital, are impossible to breach." As he stepped out of the building, the wind whipped the edge of his jacket. Jordan paused, looking up at the grey Texas sky. Above him, a Horizon Air jet roared into the clouds, cutting through the wind like a blade. He watched it rise and whispered, "You just chose the most expensive lesson of your life." His phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from Andre Lewis. "The tech team is ready. Operation Integrity. Phase 2 can be activated any time." Jordan closed his eyes for a moment, then replied, "Prepare everything. Tomorrow we start redefining the meaning of justice." Inside the Horizon building, Stanton slammed Jordan's folder onto the table, his voice sharp, arrogant. He'll regret crossing Horizon. But at that moment, the quiet Asian woman, the vice president of human resources, who had remained silent until now, spoke softly. "Mr. Stanton, if what Mr. Mitchell said is true, then perhaps we shouldn't worry about him coming after us. We should worry because he already knows exactly where to strike." Stanton said nothing, but in his eyes flickered a hint of fear, the kind of fear that belongs to a man who knows he's sitting on a bomb, but has no idea when it will explode. Night fell slowly over the city of Austin. Glass towers reflected the dull yellow of the streetlights, while the 10th floor of Aegis Cyber Defense glowed bright like a fortress in the dark. In a soundproof room, 8 engineers sat before dozens of screens, where data graphs and streams of code flowed non-stop like a living bloodstream. On the main display, a line of text stood out clearly: Operation Integrity, Phase 2 commence. At the center of the room, Jordan Mitchell stood with his arms folded, his face calm, but in his eyes burned a fire that had waited far too long. "Start it, Andre," he said quietly. Andre Lewis, the chief of security, nodded, his fingers gliding quickly across the keyboard. "We will not destroy anything. We will not break in. We will not steal." Jordan reminded them, his tone firm. "We are only holding up a mirror so they can see the true face of their own system," Andre replied. "Understood, boss. Everything we do stays in the public zone. We do not cross their firewall. We only analyze open data streams. The screen immediately rendered a network map of Horizon Air. Red points began to blink, each one marking a vulnerability in their security architecture. A young engineer, Layla Shah, let out a soft gasp. My God, they are still using a payment gateway that does not meet modern PCI standards, the same kind from the year 2015. Anyone could exploit it. Jordan looked at her and nodded. Document it. Do not touch it. Everything we do must be legal. He scanned the room, taking in every face around him, young, brilliant and diverse, white, black, Indian, Latin. All of them gathered in this room because they believed in one thing, that fairness could be defended with technology. While the technical team worked, Priya Patel walked in carrying a cup of hot coffee. Horizon stock is ticking up a little after they posted a statement denying all allegations of discrimination, she said. Jordan gave a dry smile. Let us see how long they keep laughing. He turned to Andre. What do we have so far? Andre brought the findings up on the screen. We are seeing at least 43 critical vulnerabilities. Their payment system is not properly encrypted. Their backup booking portal is exposed. Internal administrator accounts are sharing access in ways that are publicly reachable. And the worst part, passenger data is stored on servers without proper validation layers. He paused, his voice dropping. Jordan, if someone wanted to, they could cripple Horizon's entire booking system in about 10 minutes. Jordan was silent for a moment, then said, We are not going to do that. But we are going to show them that it can be done. Heads nodded around the room. Layla, prepare a slow flow simulation, Jordan instructed. The young woman typed a few lines of code, and a soft green light washed across the interface. This program will create artificial delay inside Horizon's booking system, she explained. It will not cause damage, and it will not corrupt data. It will only expose how fragile their servers really are. Jordan nodded. Exactly. A warning delivered in the language they understand best, money. Sophia Martinez, the head of communications, stepped closer, her phone in hand. The leak has started to spread. Someone inside Horizon sent their profile assessment policy to TechWatch anonymously. The news outlets are catching fire. Priya pressed her lips together. That means public opinion is tilting toward us. Jordan stared at the screen, his voice low. Not toward us, toward the truth. At around 11 at night, the entire technical team gathered around him. Andre reported, Horizon's system is weaker than we expected. We can trigger the simulation whenever you say so. All we need is your order. Jordan walked to the large glass board, where he had drawn a timeline by hand. We send them a formal warning first, he said. Thomas Blake, Aegis's legal counsel, nodded. The notice will include an offer to provide emergency security support. They will have 24 hours to respond. Jordan turned back to the group. If they choose silence, that silence will become an explosion. The night dragged on. Outside, rain fell steady against the glass. Inside, they worked without rest. They knew they were not just writing code, they were writing a new chapter in the story of justice. Around 2 a.m, a message appeared on Jordan's phone from Judge Marilyn Cooper, the seasoned mentor he deeply respected. You are walking a fine line between justice and revenge. Make sure the other side of that line is still light. Jordan read it, thinking quietly for a moment. He typed back, I do not want them to suffer. I only want them to understand. The next morning, the official warning email was sent to Horizon Air. Its content was brief and unmistakably clear. Aegis Cyber Defense has identified multiple critical vulnerabilities in your systems. We propose an urgent collaboration to protect passenger data and your business operations. If we do not receive a response within 24 hours, Aegis will fulfill its professional duty and report all findings to the relevant authorities and industry media. Within 10 minutes, Jordan received an automatic reply. "Thank you for your email. We will review and respond as soon as possible." That was all. No call, no apology, no sign that anyone in their tower understood what was coming. Jordan read the words auto-reply and said softly, then, "Phase 3 begins." That afternoon, Andre and the team completed the final simulation. The central screen displayed a line of glowing text: "Simulation booking delay mode activation in progress." Everyone held their breath. Jordan gave the signal. "Deploy it. Run it for only 20 minutes." The cursor confirmed the command. Immediately, somewhere inside Horizon's infrastructure, processing times began to stretch. A booking request took 5 seconds instead of 1. A payment transaction hung for 30 seconds instead of 3. Within 10 minutes, hundreds of live sessions jammed. Thousands of customers were unable to complete their bookings. No one was harmed. No data was lost. But in Horizon's operations, center alarm bells were shrieking. Tech team reporting nationwide network failure, an IT staffer shouted. "The backup servers are not coming online. The payment gateway is frozen." Within 5 minutes, Horizon's entire booking system had gone completely offline. In Austin, the Aegis engineers watched the metrics in real time. Andre said, "They are trying to restart the servers. It is not working, exactly as predicted." Jordan stood with his arms folded, eyes fixed on the graphs. "Record every second of this. Then prepare the report for their board of directors." 4 hours later, Horizon Air issued a press statement. "A temporary technical issue has occurred. There is no security risk. All flights remain in normal operation." But the market was unconvinced. In the next trading session, Horizon stock dropped about 6%. Online passengers complained in waves about being unable to book tickets, while tech news outlets began to ask a pointed question. Did Horizon Air ignore warnings from Aegis Cyber Defense? Jordan read that headline and smiled. He was not happy exactly. He simply felt that fairness was finally beginning to speak. Late that night, after the team had gone home, he sat alone in his office. Outside, the sky was clearing after the rain. He looked out through the window, the lights of the city reflecting faintly across his own face, eyes tired but unshaken. On his desk, his laptop still showed a blinking status line. Operation integrity status, successful simulation. Jordan whispered, "We did not break them. We only showed them what they had already broken trust." Then he turned off the lights and walked out of the office, leaving behind the faint glow of a single screen, the glow of justice written in code and triggered by a humiliation he refused to forget. At 6 a.m. the next day, inside Horizon Air's operations center in Dallas, alarms were screaming non-stop. The booking system was flickering in and out. Thousands of transactions were hanging mid-air, and customer service lines were completely overloaded. The screens glowed an angry red as dashboards flashed error messages no one there had ever seen before. Eric Nguyen, the chief technology officer, stood pale-faced. "We have tried restarting 3 times. The main servers are not responding, and the backups are frozen. I do not understand what is happening." In an emergency meeting on the 30th floor, Horizon's chief executive officer, Gregory Stanton, slammed his hand on the table. "You all told me this was just a minor issue. Then why am I getting reports that hundreds of passengers cannot check in at New York, Chicago and Los Angeles. The chief financial officer stammered, "Our payment system is temporarily down. We are losing around $3 million every hour." "3 million," Stanton shouted. Every hour, no one dared answer. The room felt like it was collapsing in on itself. On the large screen, Horizon's stock chart was dropping straight down. Meanwhile, in Austin, the team at Aegis Cyber Defense was already at work in their bright war room. On the wall, a simulation of Horizon's network showed one clear status line: overload critical delay. Andre Lewis reported, "Their servers have tried to reboot twice, but they are stuck in a loop because of a misconfiguration. No data loss so far, just a massive traffic jam." Jordan nodded. "Good. Hold the line. No damage, no trace." Priya Patel glanced at the news feed on the wall-mounted television where reporters were broadcasting scenes of chaos in multiple airports. "Are you sure we should let them struggle like this?" she asked quietly. Jordan stayed silent for a few seconds. "Not yet. They have not learned the lesson. Right now, they only feel financial pain. They still have not faced the truth." He gave the order. "Prepare a full report for Horizon's board of directors. Skip Stanton. Go straight to the highest level." By 9 a.m, inside Horizon's tower, phones were ringing without pause. The media, investors, and federal agencies were all demanding the same thing: what is happening to your systems? In the midst of the chaos, the chairwoman of the board, Catherine Doyle, received an email from Aegis, sent without any signature flair, just a clear message. To the Horizon board. What is happening today is the direct consequence of your leadership ignoring 17 critical security vulnerabilities we reported 3 months ago. A detailed report is attached. No data has been stolen. No one except Aegis has the ability to stop this incident. Respectfully, Aegis Cyber Defense. Doyle finished reading and felt her hand tremble. At the same time, she convened an emergency meeting. "Gregory," she said over the internal line, "do you know what is going on?" Stanton's voice exploded through the speaker. "I know exactly what is going on. Someone is trying to extort us." No, Doyle cut in her tone, sharp as ice. "This is not extortion, this is consequence, and it appears they have a very solid reason." At around 10, Jordan Mitchell received a call from an unfamiliar number. A man's voice, tense and hurried, came through. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Eric Nguyen, Chief Technology Officer of Horizon. We believe the current outages are related to the weaknesses your company flagged earlier. Is there any way Aegis can provide emergency support?" Jordan kept his voice level. "We can help, but I think you should talk to your Chief Executive Officer first. Mr. Stanton has instructed us not to contact Aegis. Then perhaps it is time the board finds out who the real problem is." Jordan paused for a beat, then added softly, "Check Mrs. Catherine Doyle's inbox. She is reading something right now that might save your entire company." He hung up. The room around him fell quiet. Priya looked at him and sighed. "You are steering an entire corporation with nothing but a few lines of code." Jordan answered gently, "I am just forcing them to listen to what they refuse to hear." By midday, the story had exploded across every major outlet. Cable news channels, financial networks, and wire services all ran with the same headline: "Horizon Air booking system collapses. Reports suggest ignored security warnings. Company stock loses 15% of its value in 4 hours. Images of passengers standing in endless lines at Dallas and other hubs appeared everywhere. In some of those clips, people recognized Linda Harris, the very employee who had humiliated Jordan, now being shouted at by angry travelers as the system failed around her. Standing amid piles of printed check-in forms, Linda was shaking. It is not my fault," she stammered to a co-worker. But no one believed her. The panic she now stood in was a perfect reflection of what she had once inflicted on others. At about 1 in the afternoon in the boardroom at Horizon, Catherine Doyle gathered the directors. She placed a printed copy of the Aegis report on the table, her voice cold as steel. "This is not a hacker attack. This is a professional warning. And Mr. Stanton kept it from us." Stanton was speechless. Mark Ellis, the chief operating officer, tried to step in. "Mrs. Doyle, we did not want to blow the issue out of proportion. You have just wiped out roughly $3 billion in market value." She cut him off. The room went dead silent. Then she spoke again, slowly, each word precise. "Gregory Stanton and Mark Ellis, you are both suspended from your duties, effective immediately. I will contact Aegis myself." When the call came through to Aegis, Jordan picked up. Catherine Doyle's voice sounded tired but steady. "Mr. Mitchell, this is Catherine Doyle. Our board has just removed Stanton and Ellis from their positions. We need Aegis to help restore our systems as quickly as possible." Jordan responded with calm clarity. "I am willing to cooperate under one condition." "What condition?" "A formal public apology and a concrete plan to reform your corporate culture, starting with the removal of all policies that classify passengers. In addition, I want full authority over the entire security project for 6 months." There was a pause on the other end. Then Doyle replied softly, but clearly, agreed. "You will have full control. And I am sorry on behalf of Horizon for what you have been put through." Jordan closed his eyes for a moment. In that instant, the weight on his shoulders loosened just a little. "Thank you, Catherine. Let us fix your system together in both senses of the word." Later that afternoon, Aegis began linking in to stabilize Horizon's infrastructure. On the screens, lines of commands from Andre Layla and the rest of the team scrolled non-stop, reviving one server cluster after another. Within about 2 hours, Horizon's booking network was back to stable operation. The country exhaled in relief. But no one outside knew that the real storm was only just beginning a storm inside Horizon itself. When Stanton was escorted out of the building, reporters surrounded him, microphones pointed at his face. "Do you have anything to say?" they shouted. He muttered, eyes unfocused. It was just a glitch, just a minor incident. But behind him, on a giant electronic billboard in Times Square, a bold headline rolled across the screen. "Horizon Air admits discriminatory practices, partners with Aegis for full-scale reform." When night fell over, Austin Jordan stood alone by the office window. In the reflection, he no longer saw the man who had been pushed into an economy seat, but the man who had forced an entire airline to bend by the strength of his mind. Andre walked in, smiling wearily. "We just saved their system, and in a way we saved our own dignity too." Jordan nodded, his gaze drifting beyond the glass. "No, we did not save them. We simply made them look at the consequences of their contempt." He looked up at the sky where a Horizon plane was lifting off again after a day of paralysis. In the soft orange gold of the Texas sunset, Jordan spoke quietly, almost as if to himself. "Sometimes to change a system, you have to let it collapse in front of the whole world." 3 days after the crisis, Horizon Air's headquarters still burned with light through the night. The under-maintenance signs had been taken down. The booking system was running smoothly again, but news of the airline's historic shutdown still dominated the front page of every newspaper. Beneath that calm surface, however, a complete transformation was taking place. The boardroom no longer held the same faces. Catherine Doyle sat at the head of the table, her eyes sharp and bright as a blade. She spoke to the assembled executives with a voice that cut through the room. From this day forward, Horizon will no longer be the airline of the past, where prejudice decided who deserved to be served. We will become an example that change can begin from our own mistakes. After that declaration, sweeping reforms followed. Linda Harris was terminated. Mark Ellis and Gregory Stanton formally resigned. Several department heads were suspended pending investigation, and that very afternoon a historic partnership was signed, the Horizon Air and Aegis Cyber Defense Strategic Alliance. In the operations room of Aegis in Austin, Jordan Mitchell sat before a large whiteboard where the words "Operation Integrity Mission Complete" were written in bold blue marker. His team, Andre, Priya, Sophia, and Layla, were all there exhausted, but glowing with pride. Priya raised her cup of coffee smiling. "We just made a multi-billion-dollar corporation change its entire culture. Do you realize how insane that is?" Jordan smiled faintly. "Not insane, just logical. When systems collapse, people finally start to listen." Andre looked around the room and said quietly, "You know, Jordan, when I watched Stanton being escorted out of that building, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt relieved. Because for once, justice didn't come from a courtroom, it came from the work we do." Jordan nodded slowly. "Real justice doesn't need noise. It only needs results." Later that afternoon, Jordan received a video call from Catherine Doyle. Behind her, the redesigned Horizon office, gleamed a new poster hanging on the wall that read, "Integrity is our altitude." Her tone was sincere. "Mr. Mitchell, I want to thank you. You didn't just help us restore our system, you helped us rebuild a trust we had lost. And there's something else I think you'll want to see." Catherine turned the camera toward a middle-aged black woman with a warm, confident smile. "This is Danielle Washington, the new CEO of Horizon Air. She was the first to propose a complete reform of our leadership team, and she wants to work directly with Aegis on the long-term security initiative." Danielle reached out through the screen with genuine warmth in her eyes. "I've read everything about your work. What you didn't just save a company, it opened doors for people like me to sit where I am today." "Thank you, Jordan." Jordan smiled softly. "No need to thank me. Just don't repeat their mistakes. The safest system is one that respects people." Danielle nodded firmly. "And that will be the foundation of Horizon's new philosophy." When the call ended, Jordan sat in silence for a moment. Memories flooded back the contemptuous stare of Linda Harris, the voice on the intercom humiliating him in economy class. Stanton's mocking smile. They were only memories now, but they had not faded. He opened a drawer and took out an old photo of his father, Robert Mitchell, the mailman who had never stopped working his uniform, worn from years of effort. Jordan whispered softly, his voice trembling. "You were right, Dad. They saw my skin first, but if you're good enough, they'll be forced to see your ability. I did it." Outside the window, the Texas sun was setting, painting the city in a warm orange glow. The light reflected off the glass, illuminating his face, not with the fire of anger, but with the calm light of a man who had reclaimed justice through knowledge. That night, Jordan stepped out of his office. He paused to look up at the glowing sign on the rooftop, Aegis Cyber Defense, shining against the quiet night sky. In the distance, he could hear the engine of a Horizon jet climbing into the air. He smiled faintly and murmured, "Fly." This time with a clean system and a clean soul. Then he turned and walked down the empty hallway. His footsteps echoed steadily, each one a quiet affirmation. Justice does not need a gavel. It needs intellect and conviction. Somewhere in the city, people were still talking about the CEO who forced an airline to change. But to Jordan Mitchell, he never saw himself as a hero. He was simply a man who had once been dismissed and who learned how to make the world respect him again. His story ends here, not with a victory, but with the beginning of a new era, one where technology and ethics no longer stand on opposite sides of the line. 1 month later, at the grand reopening ceremony of Horizon Air's new headquarters, hundreds of employees lined both sides of the gleaming atrium. The company logo had been changed, a pair of silver wings rising against a deep blue background with a new line beneath it that read, "Integrity takes flight." On the stage, Jordan Mitchell and CEO Danielle Washington signed the agreement for global security expansion. Camera flashes burst across the hall like sparks of renewal. Jordan stepped to the microphone, his voice steady and resonant. The crisis did not destroy Horizon, it rebirthed them. And when justice operates through understanding, no one ever needs to fear the dark again. A wave of applause filled the room. Behind him, the giant screen lit up with images of young black students receiving the Aegis Horizon scholarships, the next generation of engineers he wanted to empower. In that moment, Jordan turned toward the glass wall, watching as a Horizon aircraft lifted into the sky. It soared high, glowing bright against the clear morning light, carrying with it the message he had carved into existence with intellect and conviction. Dignity cannot be downgraded. Late at night, Jordan Mitchell sat in the first-class cabin of Horizon Air itself on the flight from Austin to New York. The flight attendant greeted him with a sincere smile. "Welcome back, Mr. Mitchell. We are honored to serve you." Her voice was soft as a breeze, yet in his heart it sounded like a quiet, triumphal song. He opened his wallet and took out a photo of his father, the man who had once taught him the simplest truth. Dignity is not something given to you, son. It is something you hold on to yourself. Jordan smiled and gently placed the photo on the table. Outside the window, the night sky stretched endlessly, the city lights below glittering like endless streams of flowing data. He took a sip of wine, leaned back and listened to the soft hum of the engines, steady as a heartbeat. His phone buzzed. A message from CEO Danielle appeared on the screen. "Horizon has just reached the highest trust rating in its history." "Thank you," Jordan typed back. "Thank yourselves. Now justice knows how to fly." The airplane soared through the night sky, carrying with it the legacy of respect and the light of a man who had once been brought low, but never defeated. From the perspective of a leadership ethics expert, the journey of Jordan Mitchell is not merely a story about discrimination or power, but proof that intellect and dignity can transform an entire system. He did not choose revenge. He chose to prove. He did not use anger, he used understanding. And it was that choice that forced those who once looked down on him to relearn the meaning of respect. If you believe that justice does not need to shout it, only needs the right action, then like this video to spread that message. Don't forget to subscribe to follow more stories where courage and wisdom walk side by side. And leave a comment with a phrase that expresses your faith in human worth. Hold your dignity.